The saloon was alive with energy, a hub of laughter and chatter that echoed off the wooden walls. It was a Friday night, and the townsfolk had gathered to unwind after a long week of hard work. Couples mingled near the bar, while friends gathered around tables, their cards and chips scattered haphazardly in front of them. The air was thick with the rich aroma of whiskey, mingling with the scent of tobacco smoke as patrons raised their glasses in cheerful toasts. Dim lanterns swung gently from the ceiling, casting flickering shadows across the faces of eager spectators. A pianist played lively tunes in the corner, his fingers dancing over the keys, adding to the thrill of excitement that filled the room. Every laugh and cheer seemed to amplify the anticipation of what would happen next as people settled into their seats, eager for entertainment. At one table, a group of gamblers eyed a fresh deck of cards with curiosity. They leaned in closer, whispering about the new game that was about to unfold. The sound of coins clinking together punctuated their conversations, each coin representing hope and dreams of winnings that could change lives. In this dimly lit space, fortunes could be made or lost in an instant. As more patrons poured in, the atmosphere crackled with expectation. It was a typical night at the saloon, but something felt different tonight. There was a buzz in the air, a premonition that a surprising twist was just around the corner. Little did they know, their lively evening was about to be turned upside down. Just as the excitement in the saloon reached a peak, the door swung open with a creak, and in walked a figure who instantly shifted the focus of the room. The Cardsharp entered with an air of confidence. His hat tilted at a jaunty angle and a devilish grin spread across his face. He was dressed in a dapper coat that shimmered under the dim lights, and his sharp eyes sparkled with mischief. "Evening, folks," he called out, his voice smooth as silk. The crowd turned to him, intrigued by his charm. He strolled over to the bar, tipping his hat to several patrons who watched with curiosity. It didn't take long for whispers to spread about the newcomer, a man known for his incredible card tricks but also rumored to have a knack for swindling. With a swagger in his step, he made his way to an empty table, effortlessly drawing attention from every corner of the saloon. "Who dares to challenge me in a game of skill?" he announced, his bold challenge hanging in the air like a spell cast over the crowd. This was no ordinary gambler. He was someone with flair for mischief. As he deftly shuffled the deck of cards, performing dazzling tricks that left mouths agape and minds racing, the townsfolk leaned closer. The excitement was palpable. They were not just onlookers but potential players in his game. Little did they know, beneath that charming exterior lay the heart of a master trickster ready to turn their lives upside down with just a card and a smile. Amidst the intrigue swirling in the saloon, the Cardsharp eyed a seasoned gambler named Hank, well known for his skills and reputation. With a mischievous glint in his eyes, the Cardsharp leaned over and called out, "Hank, how about a high-stakes poker game? Winner takes all." The moment those words left his lips, the energy in the room shifted dramatically. Hank, known for his bravado, smirked and accepted the challenge, drawing cheers and encouragement from the crowd. "I'll put up my horse and all the gold I've got," he declared boldly. Gasps rippled through the audience as they exchanged glances, realizing just how serious this matchup was becoming. The stakes were high, and tension crackled in the air like electricity. The Cardsharp grinned, knowing that this was precisely what he needed to fully captivate the audience. "And I'll match that," he replied smoothly, reaching into his pocket to produce a pile of gleaming coins that caught the dim light. The crowd whispered in awe, their excitement growing as they sensed the potential for both glory and downfall. As the two men took their seats at the table, an air of anticipation enveloped everyone. All eyes were glued to the unfolding drama. Friends and strangers alike held their breath, sipping their drinks with rapt attention. The dealer shuffled the cards with a flourish, and as they began to deal, it felt as though time had slowed down. The outcome of this game would change everything, if only they knew just how much. As the high-stakes poker game began, the atmosphere grew thick with anticipation. The Cardsharp's hands moved like a magician's, smoothly shuffling and dealing the cards with dazzling flair. Gasps and cheers erupted from the crowd with each impressive trick he performed, but not everyone was enchanted. At the back of the saloon, a few skeptical patrons exchanged wary glances. They noticed how effortlessly he seemed to manipulate the cards and suspected something wasn't quite right. "Did you see that?" whispered an older gentleman, a seasoned player himself. He barely touched the cards before they flipped right into his palm. A murmuring spread among onlookers, veiled in excitement yet tinged with doubt. Some leaned into their friends, eyebrows raised in concern as they whispered about the possibility of cheating. "He's too good," one worried woman remarked, clutching her drink tightly. "No one can play like that without some tricks up their sleeve." The tension in the air thickened as Hank remained focused, determined to showcase his own skills despite the Cardsharp's dazzling display. As rounds progressed, it became increasingly difficult for some to shake off their suspicions, especially when they caught glimpses of smirks playing at the Cardsharp's lips whenever he revealed winning hands. From cheers to murmurs of doubt, the mood shifted subtly in the saloon. The lively energy that once filled the room now pulsed with uncertainty. Would Hank be able to see through the charming facade and perilous tricks of this enigmatic gambler? The stakes had risen not only in terms of money but also trust as the townsfolk held their breath, waiting for truth to reveal itself amidst deception. Among the crowd, a figure stood apart from the rest, a sharp-eyed detective named Clara, known for her keen instincts and unwavering sense of justice. She had come to the saloon that night, hoping to enjoy some off-duty relaxation, but now her attention was fully drawn to the unfolding drama at the poker table. Clara's brow furrowed as she observed the Cardsharp's every move, noting the way he flashed his winning smiles while manipulating the cards with alarming skill. As the game progressed, she leaned closer, her heart racing with suspicion. The townsfolk around her cheered and gasped, but Clara remained focused, her mind working quickly. "There's something not right about him," she muttered under her breath, watching how the Cardsharp seemed to sidestep scrutiny with a wink or a laugh. Clara began to take mental notes of each suspicious action, the way he would occasionally glance at Hank's stack of chips or how his hands moved deftly in a way that felt choreographed. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small notebook, jotting down observations with careful precision. With each round, she could feel the tension building not just in the saloon but within herself. If he was cheating, she needed proof. As she watched Hank, who remained focused on the cards rather than the Cardsharp's tricks, Clara resolved to gather evidence that could expose the fraud lurking behind the charm. Her instincts told her that this playful game was more than it appeared. It was a battle between fairness and deceit, and she was determined to unveil the truth before it was too late. As the game continued, the tension in the saloon reached a boiling point. Clara's heart raced as she leaned closer, her eyes fixated on the Cardsharp's hands, a blur of motion that seemed almost magical. With each round, he won hand after hand, his charming smile never wavering. But Clara remained resolute, her instincts telling her that beneath that charming exterior lay deception. Then it happened. In the midst of a particularly crucial round, Clara noticed something that made her breath catch in her throat. The Cardsharp, while pretending to shuffle the deck, effortlessly palmed one of Hank's cards without anyone noticing. It was a split-second moment, but Clara's keen eye caught the glint of the card as it slipped into his palm. Her pulse quickened. This was the evidence she had been searching for. The crowd erupted in cheers as the Cardsharp revealed his winning hand yet again. But Clara felt a knot tighten in her stomach. She glanced at Hank, who remained oblivious to what had just transpired, fully focused on his own cards. The detective knew she had to act quickly. If she didn't expose him now, Hank could lose everything. With determination surging through her veins, Clara stood up and called out sharply over the din of excitement. "Stop! I have something to say." All heads turned toward her in surprise, a hush falling over the saloon. The air pulsed with suspense as everyone awaited her next words. Could she finally unveil the truth about this cunning Cardsharp? The saloon fell into a thick silence as Clara's voice cut through the air, commanding attention. The Cardsharp, momentarily taken aback, turned to face her with an unreadable expression while Hank looked up in confusion. The tension was palpable. Every patron leaned forward, their eyes darting between Clara and the Cardsharp, eager to see what would unfold. "I have evidence that this man is cheating," Clara declared, her voice steady despite the weight of the accusation. Gasps echoed around the room as a wave of disbelief washed over the crowd. Some patrons whispered among themselves, unsure of how to react, while others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The Cardsharp's charming facade began to crack as he shot Clara a sharp glance. "What nonsense is this?" he scoffed, but his bravado faltered under the intensity of Clara's gaze. "You can't accuse me without proof." Clara stepped forward, determination radiating from her. "I saw you palm a card during the last deal." She pulled out her notebook and pointed directly at him. "You think you can win by trickery? The townsfolk deserve better than this." Hank's brow furrowed in realization as he processed her words. He glanced at his stack of chips and back at Clara, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. The atmosphere felt electric. Everyone held their breath, waiting for the Cardsharp to respond. The challenge hung in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst, and it was clear that all eyes were now on him. Would he defend his honor or slink away in defeat? The stakes had never been higher, and only time would reveal how this dramatic confrontation would unfold. The Cardsharp straightened his posture, a smirk creeping across his face as he looked down at Clara. "You really think you can accuse me and get away with it?" he taunted, the arrogance in his voice slicing through the tension in the room. "You have no proof, just wild accusations from a jealous bystander." The crowd shifted uneasily, murmurs rising among the patrons. Clara's heart raced as she felt the weight of their eyes on her, but she stood her ground. "I saw what you did," she shouted back, her voice firm. "You think your charm can distract us from the tricks up your sleeves." With each word, the anger in the saloon grew louder. "Cheater!" someone yelled from the back, echoing the sentiments of those who had suspected foul play all along. The Cardsharp's confident demeanor faltered for just a moment. He could feel the tide turning against him. "Come now, folks. I'm just here to entertain," he replied, attempting to sweep away their concerns with a wave of his hand. But Clara pressed on, her determination igniting the crowd's anger further. "Entertainment doesn't involve stealing from honest men." As whispers turned to shouts, Clara pointed accusingly at him. "This is about more than just a game. You've disrespected every person in this saloon." The atmosphere crackled with energy as patrons began to rise from their seats, united in their disdain for the Cardsharp's deceitful ways. Realizing that his charm was losing its power, the Cardsharp's expression hardened into one of defiance. He looked around at the crowd now gathering behind Clara, their loyalty swaying like a pendulum. Would he fight back against the mounting anger or reveal his true nature? In that charged moment, it was clear that everything hung in the balance. The truth could no longer be hidden. As the air crackled with tension, the townsfolk began to unite in their disdain for the Cardsharp. Clara stood at the forefront, her voice rising above the growing clamor. "He thinks he can come here and cheat us," she declared, rallying the crowd. "We won't let him take our pride or our money." With renewed resolve, patrons moved closer together, forming a solid wall of support behind Clara as they turned their collective anger on the Cardsharp. "Get out!" someone shouted, and others quickly echoed the demand. The saloon was no longer just a place of entertainment. It had transformed into a battleground for justice. The Cardsharp's face paled as he felt the weight of their displeasure pressing down on him. He glanced nervously at Hank, whose plain frustration now morphed into a quiet strength, a reminder that decent folk would not stand by while a fraud preyed upon them. With booming voices and fists raised, the townsfolk shouted in unison for him to leave. "Pack your tricks and go!" another patron yelled, his eyes fierce with indignation. Each angry cheer intensified the solidarity among them, creating a united front that left no room for doubt about their intentions. Cornered, the Cardsharp realized there was no escape from this collective resolution. He straightened up, trying to muster his confidence one last time but finding it futile. With slumped shoulders and resentment dripping from his lips, he muttered an insult before making his way toward the exit. The saloon erupted into cheers as he stepped outside, sealing his own defeat in front of them all. Justice had prevailed that night, reinforcing a sense of community among townsfolk who had bound themselves to protect their own against deceit. As the door swung shut behind the Cardsharp, a wave of relief washed over the saloon. The patrons erupted into joyous cheers, their voices mingling in a celebratory chorus that filled the air with newfound energy. Clara stood at the center, her heart swelling with pride as she absorbed the gratitude and admiration of her fellow townsfolk. "Tonight, we stood together against deceit," she proclaimed, raising her glass high above her head. The crowd echoed her sentiment, clinking their glasses together in a toast to justice and unity. Laughter and stories began to flow as people recounted their favorite moments from the night, while others expressed their disbelief at how close they had come to being swindled. Hank, still processing the events, approached Clara with a relieved smile. "I didn't realize how strong our community was until tonight," he said, his voice filled with appreciation. "Thank you for having the courage to speak up." Clara smiled back, feeling a deep sense of camaraderie among everyone present. They had faced a challenge and triumphed together, reinforcing their bonds as a community. The saloon was more than just a gathering place now. It was a symbol of their resilience. As the night wore on, the music returned to a lively tempo, and dancing broke out among the friends who had rallied together. The victory over deceit felt palpable, a reminder of the strength they all possessed when united. They had not only reclaimed their pride but also fortified the trust that connected them, ensuring that their small town would always stand against anyone who tried to disrupt their way of life.